1 year after the massacre at New Montana, the galaxy had been transformed beyond recognition. The Cretan Empire existed only in history books, while its former territory thrived under human administration. Worlds that had suffered under military oppression for centuries now enjoyed peace and prosperity that their populations had never imagined possible. The speed of this transformation amazed even the humans who had engineered it. Fleet Admiral Jake Morrison stood before the assembled representatives of 200 civilizations in the Great Hall that had once housed the Galactic Council. The building had been rebuilt with human engineering that combined aesthetic beauty with defensive capabilities that could withstand planetary bombardment. This was where the future of the galaxy would be decided by those who had earned the right, through strength and sacrifice. The Reformed Council operated under new rules that reflected galactic reality. Humanity held permanent membership with veto power over any military action, while other species earned representation based on their contributions to galactic peace and prosperity. The old system of inherited privilege and technological superiority had been replaced by meritocracy under human guidance. Commander Rachel Stone led the new galactic patrol that maintained order with efficiency that had never been achieved under alien leadership. Her forces combined human discipline with alien cooperation in joint operations that protected trade routes and enforced laws across thousands of star systems. Former enemies now served alongside human officers, having learned that humanity rewarded loyalty and competence while punishing betrayal with absolute certainty. The trials of Crethon war criminals had concluded with sentences that satisfied both justice and mercy. Those responsible for the worst atrocities faced execution, while others received prison terms that allowed for rehabilitation and eventual reintegration into galactic society. Dr. Sarah Blake's legal framework became the foundation for a justice system that protected the innocent while holding criminals accountable, regardless of their species or status. General Chris Martinez oversaw reconstruction efforts that had transformed former Crethan worlds into showcases of what alien civilizations could achieve under human guidance. Infrastructure projects employed millions of workers, while educational programs taught advanced technologies and administrative techniques. The contrast with previous conditions was so dramatic that many species began requesting human oversight for their own worlds. The hidden shipyards that had produced Earth's dreadnought fleet continued their work on an even larger scale. Captain Alex Wright's intelligence reports described construction projects that dwarfed anything previously attempted by any civilization. Vessels designed for exploration beyond the galactic rim shared production facilities with weapons platforms that could defend entire star systems against any conceivable threat. The Nexari technocracy had become humanity's most enthusiastic ally after witnessing demonstrations of Earth's technological superiority. Their scientists worked alongside human researchers on projects that pushed the boundaries of known physics, while their industrial capacity supported the construction of exploration fleets that would map the universe beyond current knowledge. Admiral Morrison's final address to the Galactic Assembly outlined humanity's vision for the future with words that would be remembered for millennia. Earth had not sought galactic dominance, but had accepted the responsibility that came with superior capabilities. The galaxy would know peace, but it would be peace enforced by those who understood that sometimes violence was necessary to protect innocent life. The Valorian collective had undergone the most dramatic transformation of any alien species. Their Balel Telepathic abilities made them valuable intelligence assets, while their natural empathy helped them understand human motivation in ways that other species found impossible. Many Valorians served in diplomatic roles where their mental talents supported negotiations and cultural exchange programs. Lieutenant Colonel Amy Foster established military academies on dozens of worlds where alien officers learned human tactics and technologies. The curriculum emphasized protection of civilian populations and precise application of force while teaching strategic thinking that had evolved from millennia of human warfare. Graduation from these programs became the most prestigious achievement available to non-human military personnel. The exploration fleets that departed from hidden bases in human space carried crews that represented the best of galactic civilization under Earth leadership. These vessels would map star systems beyond the galactic rim while searching for new worlds that could support colonization by species seeking fresh starts under human protection. Captain Ben Torres commanded the defense platforms that protected the most important human installations throughout the galaxy. His weapons could eliminate threats at interstellar distances, while his sensors monitored activities across hundreds of star systems. The network he controlled ensured that any aggressive action against human interests would be detected and countered within minutes of initiation. The war crimes tribunals had revealed atrocities that went far beyond the treatment of human prisoners. Crethan forces had practiced genocide against dozens of species while conducting biological experiments that violated every principle of civilized behavior. The evidence presented in court convinced many civilizations that they owed their survival to human intervention in galactic affairs. Dr. Sarah Blake's legal reforms created a justice system that balanced accountability with rehabilitation while ensuring that victims received compensation for their suffering. The principles she established influenced law enforcement across the galaxy, as species discovered that human concepts of justice produced better results than their traditional methods. The intelligence network that Captain Alex Wright had built during 50 years of apparent human weakness now served as the foundation for galactic security operations. His agents monitored potential threats, while his analysts predicted problems before they could develop into serious challenges. The galaxy had never been safer or more prosperous under any previous leadership. Commander Ryan Bell established strategic reserves that could respond to any crisis within days of detection. His forces remained hidden in locations throughout known space while maintaining readiness levels that ensured immediate deployment capability. The speed and efficiency of human military response had convinced most species that resistance was both futile and unnecessary. The Galactic Assembly voted unanimously to grant humanity permanent leadership authority over military affairs, while recognizing Earth's right to veto any decision that might threaten galactic stability. This formalization of human dominance represented acceptance by alien civilizations that had initially resisted but eventually recognized the benefits of competent leadership. Lieutenant Sam Parker coordinated communication networks that linked every inhabited world in a web of instantaneous information exchange. His systems enabled coordination of activities across thousands of light years while providing early warning of any threats to galactic security. The technology that made this possible remained a closely guarded human secret that ensured continued advantages over potential rivals. Major Kate Sullivan trained the next generation of officers who would inherit responsibility for maintaining galactic peace under human leadership. Her students included representatives of every major species who learned that true strength came from protecting those who could not protect themselves, while ensuring that aggressive actions brought swift and certain consequences. The galaxy that emerged from the ashes of the Krathan Empire, represented everything that previous civilizations had failed to achieve despite millennia of trying. Trade flourished under the protection of human fleets, while scientific research advanced through cooperation between species that had once been enemies. Cultural exchange programs fostered understanding, while military cooperation ensured that no single species could threaten the peace that humanity had established. Admiral Morrison's legacy extended far beyond military victory over a single empire. He had demonstrated that a species willing to sacrifice for the protection of others could earn the right to lead through strength and wisdom rather than fear and oppression. The humans who had once been dismissed as primitive newcomers now held the fate of the galaxy in their hands and used that power to create something better than what had existed before. The dreadnought fleet that had once inspired terror throughout known space now served as a reminder that peace required constant vigilance and the will to act when innocent lives were threatened. The galaxy was safer under human protection than it had ever been under alien rule, and the future promised exploration and discovery that would benefit all species willing to contribute to the common good. The fall of the Krathan Empire sent shock waves through every inhabited system in the galaxy. Intelligence reports flooded into the capitals of major powers, describing weapons and tactics that seemed impossible even by advanced technological standards. The humans had not just defeated a military force. They had dismantled an entire civilization with efficiency that terrified anyone who understood the implications. General Chris Martinez supervised the occupation of former Krathan, worlds from his headquarters on the planet that had once been the Empire's military center. His administrative genius rivaled his tactical brilliance as he transformed conquered territories into functioning societies almost overnight. The speed of reconstruction amazed even human observers who thought they understood their own capabilities. The Nexari Empire called an emergency session of their High Council to discuss the human threat. Their intelligence networks had been monitoring the war, and the reports painted a picture that challenged everything they believed about galactic power structures. These primitive newcomers possessed technology that was centuries ahead of current standards and industrial capacity that dwarfed established civilizations. Dr. Sarah Blake established war crimes tribunals on 12 different worlds to prosecute Krathan officers responsible for atrocities against human prisoners. Her methodical approach to justice became a template that would influence galactic law for generations to come. The trials were broadcast throughout known space, showing that humans fought not for conquest, but for accountability and the protection of innocent life. The Valorian Collective tried to use their telepathic abilities to understand human motivation and predict their next moves. What they found in human minds shocked them beyond anything they had experienced before. These beings thought in patterns that defied logical analysis while maintaining focus and determination that never wavered regardless of circumstances. Captain Alex Wright commanded the intelligence division that had infiltrated every major government in the galaxy during the 50 years of apparent human weakness. His network of agents and informants had mapped political structures and military capabilities, while their targets remained completely unaware of the surveillance. The humans had been preparing for this moment since they first left their solar system. The Nexari fleet moved to attack human positions near the former Krathan border, expecting to catch the invaders overextended and vulnerable. Instead, they found themselves surrounded by vessels that seemed to materialize from empty space. Human stealth technology proved to be decades ahead of anything the galaxy had seen, while their weapons turned the ambush into a massacre. Admiral Jake Morrison received Reports from across human space describing the true scope of Earth's military buildup. Hidden shipyards in asteroid fields and gas giant atmospheres had been producing vessels of war for decades. The dreadnought fleet that had conquered the Cretan Empire was only the first wave of an armada that numbered in the thousands of ships. Lieutenant. Colonel Amy Foster coordinated humanitarian aid programs on liberated worlds, where Crethan civilians discovered that their new human administrators actually cared about their welfare. Food distribution systems and medical care improved dramatically under military occupation, while infrastructure projects employed millions of former enemy citizens in rebuilding their own societies. The Galactic Council attempted to form a coalition against human expansion, but their plans collapsed when member species realized the futility of challenging Earth's military might. Intelligence reports described weapons that could destroy entire star systems and defensive technologies that made human ships nearly invulnerable to conventional attack. Commander Ryan Bell studied reports of alien fleet movements and realized that several species were considering joint action against humanity. His response was swift and decisive. Human forces appeared in their home systems without warning and delivered messages that left no room for misinterpretation. Any aggressive action would result in consequences that made the Crethan campaign look like a minor police action. The Valorian home fleet attempted to probe human defenses using their advanced sensor technology and telepathic reconnaissance. They discovered that human ships could not only detect their presence, but track their movements through dimensions that should have been invisible. The hunters became the hunted as human vessels closed in on the Valorian scouts with predatory precision. Captain Ben Torres led the demonstration that convinced the galaxy to abandon any thoughts of military resistance. His task force destroyed an uninhabited star system using weapons that turned the primary star into a supernova. The display of power was broadcast to every civilization in known space, along with a simple message. This was what happened to empty systems. Inhabited worlds that threatened humans would face much worse. The Nexari technocracy surrendered without firing another shot after their initial defeat. Their scientific analysis of human capabilities revealed technology that violated known laws of physics: faster than light travel without hyperspace gates, energy weapons that drew power from parallel dimensions, defensive shields that existed in multiple realities simultaneously. Dr. Sarah Blake's tribunals revealed the true extent of Cretan atrocities against not just humans, but dozens of other species over centuries of conquest. The evidence presented in court showed systematic genocide and biological warfare that had been hidden from galactic awareness. Many civilizations realized they owed their survival to human intervention. General Chris Martinez established the Galactic Reconstruction Authority to oversee the transformation of former Crethan territory into peaceful and prosperous worlds. His administrators worked with local populations to build governments that served their people instead of oppressing them. The contrast with previous alien rule was so dramatic that many species requested human oversight. The intelligence reports that Captain Alex Wright presented to Earth Command described a galaxy in transition. Every major power was reevaluating their position and seeking accommodation with human leadership. The old order, based on technological superiority and military dominance, had collapsed in the face of Earth's overwhelming capabilities. Ambassador Elena White addressed the reformed Galactic Council with terms that would govern future relations between Earth and alien civilizations. Humanity would take responsibility for maintaining galactic peace, but member species would contribute resources and personnel to support enforcement operations. The age of human hegemony had officially begun. The Valorian collective attempted one final telepathic assault on human command centers, believing they could disable Earth's leadership with mental attacks. They discovered that human minds were naturally resistant to alien influence, while their own telepaths found themselves overwhelmed by thoughts and emotions they could not process or understand. Lieutenant Sam Parker coordinated the communications network that linked human forces across thousands of light years without detectable delay. The technology that made instantaneous galactic communication possible remained a closely guarded secret that gave Earth intelligence advantages no other species could match. Major Kate Sullivan established training programs where former Crethan soldiers learned human military doctrine and served alongside Earth forces in peacekeeping operations. The integration was so successful that many aliens began requesting transfer to human units where they could learn tactics and technologies their own species had never developed. The galaxy began to understand that the human conquest of Crethan space was not an anomaly or lucky victory. It was the inevitable result of decades of preparation by a species that had spent millennia perfecting the art of warfare against its own kind. Every strategy and weapon had been tested in conflicts that made galactic wars look like minor skirmishes. Admiral Morrison announced the establishment of permanent human bases in strategic locations throughout known space. These installations would serve as staging areas for exploration beyond the galactic rim and as command centers for maintaining order among the established civilizations. The message was clear. Humanity was here to stay, and the galaxy would adapt to their leadership. The new order that emerged from the ashes of the Crethan Empire represented everything the aliens had failed to achieve in millennia of trying. Peace through strength, justice through accountability, progress through cooperation under human guidance. The species that had once been dismissed as primitive newcomers now held the fate of the galaxy in their hands. Krethos Prime had never been threatened in the 500 years since the Empire was founded. The homeworld of the Crethan species was protected by orbital defense platforms that could destroy entire fleets and ground installations that had withstood every siege attempt in recorded history. The planet's 12 billion inhabitants believed their world was unconquerable until Admiral Jake Morrison's fleet appeared in their system. The sight of 200 human dreadnoughts emerging from hyperspace sent shock waves through the Crethan government. These were not the scattered raids and border skirmishes they had expected from a primitive species. This was a full-scale invasion force that dwarfed anything seen in galactic warfare. The humans had crossed half the galaxy to bring war to the very heart of the Empire. Captain Ben Torres commanded the orbital bombardment group from his position aboard the EDS Retribution. His orders were precise and left no room for interpretation. Military targets were to be destroyed with extreme prejudice, while civilian areas remained completely untouched. The humans would demonstrate that they could level a planet or protect it with equal skill. The Crethan High Command sent desperate messages demanding to know how human forces had penetrated their defenses so easily. Their border fleets had been swept aside like insects, and their fortress worlds had fallen without slowing the advance. Intelligence reports spoke of weapons that violated known laws of physics and tactics that seemed to anticipate every possible response. Major Kate Sullivan prepared her assault troops for the ground invasion of the capital city. Her Marines had been chosen from the finest soldiers on Earth and trained in combat techniques that combined human ingenuity with lessons learned from studying alien warfare. They moved with coordination that seemed almost telepathic as they prepared to face an enemy that outnumbered them 50-1. The bombardment of Krethos Prime began at dawn local time and continued for exactly 6 hours. Human weapons found. Every military installation on the planet while leaving hospitals and schools completely untouched. The precision was so exact that Crethan civilians watched government buildings explode while their homes remained perfectly safe just across the street. Commander Ryan Bell coordinated the assault from his flagship while monitoring intelligence. Reports from across the Empire. Crethan resistance was collapsing on every front as their military leadership realized they were fighting an enemy beyond their understanding. Human forces moved through their territory like a plague, consuming everything military while treating civilians with care that bordered on reverence. The orbital defense platforms that had protected Krethos Prime for centuries were reduced to debris in the first hour of combat. Human ships moved between the massive installations like deadly dancers, while their weapons carved through armor and shielding that had been considered invulnerable. The defenders found themselves shooting at shadows, while death came from directions they had not thought possible. Lieutenant Colonel Amy Foster established field hospitals to treat wounded Crethan civilians caught in the crossfire. Her medical teams worked alongside human soldiers to provide care for anyone who needed it regardless of species. The contrast between human mercy toward innocents and absolute ruthlessness toward military targets confused and terrified the enemy. Population. The Crethan Emperor himself appeared on global communications networks to demand that the humans explain their presence in his system. Admiral Morrison responded with a broadcast that reached every inhabited world in the Empire. The message was simple and delivered with the cold authority of someone who held absolute power over life and death. Earth demanded the immediate surrender of every officer involved in the massacre at New Montana and the torture of human prisoners. The war criminals would face justice on Earth, or the Crethan species would face the consequences of protecting them. Morrison gave them 24 hours to comply before the real bombardment would begin. The Crethan military tried one final desperate attack using every ship they could gather from across the Empire. 3,000 vessels converged on the human fleet in what should have been an overwhelming assault. Instead, they flew into a carefully prepared trap that had been months in the making. Captain Lisa Grant led the counterattack that shattered the Crethan fleet in less than 2 hours. Human ships appeared from stealth positions throughout the system, while weapons platforms hidden in asteroids opened fire on pre-targeted enemy formations. The battle was over before most Crethan commanders understood what was happening to their forces. The ground assault on the capital began when the Crethan government refused to surrender the war criminals. Major Kate Sullivan's Marines landed in the government district while human artillery provided support with accuracy that amazed even their allies. Buildings containing military targets were reduced to rubble, while civilian structures next door remained untouched. Crethan soldiers found themselves fighting an enemy that seemed to know exactly where they were at all times. Human forces moved through the city like they had maps of every building and tunnel system. Ambushes failed because the humans were never where they were supposed to be, while Crethan positions were discovered and destroyed with frightening efficiency. The battle for the Imperial Palace lasted 3 days and became legendary throughout the galaxy. Crethan guards fought with desperate courage, while human marines advanced with methodical precision. Every room was cleared with minimal casualties, while prisoners were taken alive whenever possible for later interrogation. Admiral Morrison himself entered the throne room where the Crethan Emperor waited with his final bodyguards. The ancient alien ruler had expected to die fighting, but Morrison had other plans. The Emperor would live to see his war criminals handed over to human justice, and his empire transformed into something that served the galaxy instead of terrorizing. The intelligence network that Ryan Bell had built throughout Crethan space, finally revealed its true scope. Human agents had infiltrated every level of the government and military for years before the war began. The attack on New Montana had been allowed to happen so that humanity would have justification for what came next. Lieutenant Sam Parker coordinated the search for human prisoners held in secret facilities across the planet. The rescue teams found horrors that would fuel human anger for generations to come. Crethan scientists had experimented on men, women, and children with methods that violated every principle of civilized behavior. The Galactic Council sent urgent messages demanding that the humans accept a ceasefire and begin negotiations. Ambassador Elena White responded with footage from the prison camps and research facilities that silenced every criticism. The galaxy finally understood why Earth had unleashed such devastating force against the Crethan Empire. Captain Ben Torres supervised the systematic destruction of every weapons factory and military research facility on Krethos Prime. The infrastructure that had supported centuries of conquest was reduced to scrap, while the civilian population watched their oppressive government crumble before their eyes. The war criminals were loaded onto prison ships for transport to Earth, where they would face trial for crimes against humanity. The Crethan Emperor was forced to watch as his officers were marched away in chains, while human forces established martial law across his former empire. Major Kate Sullivan established temporary governments on liberated worlds with Crethan civilians, serving under human oversight. The new administrations focused on rebuilding infrastructure and providing aid to populations that had suffered under military rule for generations. Many Crethans began to wonder if conquest by humans might actually improve their lives. The siege of Krethos Prime ended with complete human victory and minimal civilian casualties. The galaxy had witnessed something unprecedented in the history of warfare. A single species had crossed interstellar space to deliver justice with surgical precision and overwhelming force. The age of Crethan dominance was over, and the era of human leadership had begun. Admiral Morrison stood in the ruins of the Imperial Palace and broadcast a message to every world in the galaxy. The Crethan Empire no longer existed, but its people would be protected under human administration. Any species that threatened innocent humans would face the same fate as those who had learned too late that humanity protected its own with absolute determination. 6 months had passed since New Montana burned, and the galaxy was about to witness something that would become legend. The Crethan Empire controlled 15 star systems and considered themselves the finest warriors in known space. Their military had never lost a major battle, and their generals believed no force could challenge their supremacy. They were about to discover how badly they had misjudged the species from Earth. Commander Ryan Bell stood on the bridge of the EDS Devastator as the human fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of Crethan territory. 200 massive ships materialized in perfect formation, like ghosts becoming solid. Each dreadnought was larger than anything the galaxy had ever seen and armed with weapons that defied current understanding of physics and engineering. The Crethan border stations detected the human fleet immediately, but their commanders could not believe the sensor readings. No species had ever built ships this large or moved this many vessels in a single operation. The defensive grid that had protected the Empire for centuries suddenly seemed inadequate against the wall of metal and firepower approaching their worlds. Ryan had spent months studying every detail of Crethan military doctrine and defensive positions. Human intelligence networks had mapped every asteroid base and every hidden weapon platform. The Crethans fought with honor and tradition, while humans fought with cold calculation and overwhelming force. It was not going to be a fair fight. The first engagement lasted exactly 17 minutes. The Cretan Fourth Fleet moved to intercept the human advance with 300 ships, including their newest battle cruisers. They expected a prolonged battle that would test both sides and prove their superior skill. Instead, they watched in horror as human weapons tore through their shields and armor like paper. Lieutenant Colonel Amy Foster watched the tactical display from her position aboard the EDS Stormbreaker. The Cretan ships were brave, and their crews fought to the end, but they had no answer for human technology. Plasma cannons that could melt battleships and missile systems that tracked targets through hyperspace made the battle completely one-sided. The Cretan survivors sent desperate messages to their high command describing weapons beyond their comprehension. Human ships moved with impossible speed and accuracy, while their own attacks seemed to have no effect. The report spoke of vessels that could appear and disappear like spirits and guns that fired beams of pure destruction. Admiral Jake Morrison received the battle reports with grim satisfaction. The Cretans had murdered innocent humans, and now they were learning the price of that mistake. The Earth Defense Fleet was just getting started, and they had barely used a fraction of their true capabilities. The galaxy was watching, and the message needed to be absolutely clear. Captain Lisa Grant led the ground assault teams that liberated the first Cretan prison camps. What her Marines found there made even hardened soldiers sick with rage. Human. Prisoners had been used for medical experiments and biological research. Men and women had been tortured for information they did not possess about Earth defenses that did not exist when they were captured. The rescued humans told stories that spread through the fleet like wildfire. Cretan scientists had tried to understand human physiology by cutting into living subjects. They wanted to know how humans could survive in environments that killed other species. The prisoners had endured months of agony while their captors took detailed notes on their suffering. Amy Foster coordinated the liberation of 6 prison worlds in the first month of the campaign. Her Marines showed perfect discipline in combat and absolute mercy toward civilian populations. Cretan families were protected and fed, while military installations were reduced to smoking rubble with surgical precision. The Cretan military began to experience something their species had never known before. Fear crept into their ranks as reports arrived of entire fleets vanishing without a trace. Human forces seemed to know exactly where every ship would be and when. Ambushes became routine as the invaders demonstrated tactical knowledge that should have been impossible. Commander Ryan Bell had turned warfare into an art form that terrified his enemies. His battle plans anticipated every possible Cretan response and prepared counters for strategies they had not even considered yet. The humans fought like they could read minds better than the telepathic Valorians ever could. The Siege of Krethos Minor became a textbook example of human military efficiency. The heavily fortified world was supposed to hold out for years against any invasion force. Ryan Bell's fleet surrounded the planet and began systematic bombardment of military targets while leaving civilian areas completely untouched. The precision was so exact that Cretan families watched from their windows as nearby weapons factories exploded. Lieutenant Sam Parker coordinated the electronic warfare campaign that crippled Cretan communications across 3 star systems. Human technology could break any code and intercept any signal, while their own transmissions remained completely secure. The enemy found themselves fighting blind and deaf against an opponent who knew their every move before they made it. The Galactic Council finally began to understand that something unprecedented was happening in Cretan space. Ambassador Elena White addressed the emergency session with ice in her voice. She presented evidence of the atrocities committed against human prisoners and demanded that the Council take action against the perpetrators. The Valorian representative tried to suggest mediation and compromise. Elena White cut him off with words that made the entire assembly fall silent. Earth had tried diplomacy and been answered with murder and torture. Now humanity would handle this matter in their own way, and the galaxy could watch and learn what happened to those who attacked innocent humans. Captain Ben Torres commanded the orbital bombardment group that reduced the Cretan Third Fleet to scrap metal in under an hour. His ships moved through space like dancing giants while enemy fire passed harmlessly through areas they had occupied moments before. The Crethans had never seen anything move that fast or hit that hard. The Nexari Empire sent observers to monitor the conflict and report back on human capabilities. What they saw shattered their assumptions about primitive Earth technology. Human ships used weapons and defenses that seemed centuries ahead of current galactic standards. The observers began to wonder if humanity had been hiding their true capabilities all along. Admiral Morrison broadcast a message to every Crethan world explaining exactly what would happen next. Human forces would continue their advance until every prisoner was freed and every war criminal was captured. The Crethan Empire could surrender now and face justice, or resist and face complete destruction. The choice was theirs, but the outcome was inevitable. The iron tide of human ships rolled deeper into Crethan space with unstoppable momentum. Each victory made the next one easier as enemy morale collapsed and defensive positions crumbled. The warriors who had once terrorized the galaxy now sent panicked messages begging for reinforcements that would never come. The galaxy watched in stunned silence as humanity demonstrated what 50 years of apparent weakness had really been. Preparation and planning on a scale that staggered the imagination. The species that had seemed primitive and emotional was revealing itself to be the most dangerous military force in known space. The age of human dominance had begun. Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the EDS Thunderstrike and watched the stars through the massive viewing window. The ship was the largest thing humans had ever built, and it moved through space like a metal mountain. Jake had spent 30 years in the Earth Defense Force, and he knew this moment would change everything. The galaxy was about to learn what humans could do when they got angry. The communication panel lit up with an urgent signal. Lieutenant Sam Parker turned from his station with a pale face. The message from New Montana had just arrived, and it was not good news. The Crethan Empire had attacked the peaceful human colony without warning. Men, women, and children were dead. The colony that had taken 20 years to build was now burning wreckage on a distant world. Jake read the report twice before he believed it. New Montana was home to 50,000 humans who had never hurt anyone. They were farmers and teachers, and doctors who just wanted to live in peace. The Crethans had landed with their war machines and killed everything that moved. The few survivors were hiding in caves and sending desperate calls for help. Captain Lisa Grant walked onto the bridge, with her jaw set tight. She commanded the EDS Stormbreaker, and she was ready for a fight. Lisa had grown up on a colony world, and she knew what it meant to build something from nothing. The thought of innocent families being murdered made her blood boil with rage that she had never felt before. The Galactic Council had dismissed humans as weak newcomers for 50 years. The three major powers thought Earth was just another primitive world that would follow their rules. The Valorians read minds and thought they were superior. The Nexari built fancy machines and looked down on everyone else. The Crethons were warriors who respected only strength, and they had decided to test the humans. Jake called his senior officers to the war room. The holographic display showed the location of New Montana and the Crethon fleet that had attacked it. Commander Ryan. Bell studied the tactical data with cold eyes. He was the best strategist in the fleet, and he was already planning how to make the Crethons pay for what they had done. The Earth Defense Fleet had been built in secret over the past 10 years, while the galaxy thought humans were just exploring. And trading the shipyards around Earth had been working day and night. 200 dreadnoughts waited in hidden bases throughout human space. Each ship carried enough firepower to level a city and crews that had trained for exactly this moment. Lieutenant Colonel Amy Foster reviewed the intelligence reports from New Montana. The Crethons had not just killed the colonists, they had captured some humans alive and taken them away for experiments. The thought of human prisoners being tortured in alien laboratories made Amy want to load her Marines into shuttles and launch immediately. The communication system crackled with an incoming message from Earth Command. President Helen Davis appeared on the main screen with the leaders of every major nation standing behind her. The United Earth government had made their decision, and it was unanimous. The Crethon Empire would pay for attacking innocent humans. Jake received his orders directly from the President herself. The Earth Defense Fleet was authorized to use any means necessary to rescue human prisoners and punish those responsible for the attack on New Montana. The rules of engagement were simple. Show no mercy to military targets, but protect innocent civilians. Make the galaxy understand that attacking humans would bring consequences beyond imagination. The crew of the Thunderstrike prepared for war with the efficiency that had made humans the dominant species on their own world. Engineers checked every system twice. Weapons officers loaded the massive guns that could punch holes through asteroid-sized targets. Medical teams prepared for casualties that everyone hoped would be mostly alien. Captain Lisa Grant returned to her ship to lead the rescue mission to New Montana. The Stormbreaker was built for speed and stealth, and it would reach the colony ahead of the main fleet. Lisa knew she might find only bodies when she arrived, but she had to try to save anyone who was still alive. The Galactic Council emergency session was called within hours of the attack. Ambassador Elena White represented Earth, and she stood before the assembled aliens with calm dignity. The council members thought this was just another border dispute that could be settled with negotiations and treaties. They had no idea what was coming. Elena delivered her message with the cold precision of a lawyer reading a death sentence. Earth demanded the immediate return of all human prisoners and the surrender of the Crethon officers responsible for the massacre. If these demands were not met within 72 hours, Earth would consider it an act of war against all humanity. The Crethon delegate laughed at the human demands. His species had conquered dozens of worlds, and they were not afraid of one primitive planet. The Valorians and Nexari representatives said nothing, but their thoughts were clear. Humans were emotional and weak, and this crisis would soon blow over. Like all the others, Jake Morrison stood before his assembled fleet commanders in the main briefing room. 200 ships and their crews waited for his orders. These men and women had volunteered to defend humanity, and they were ready to follow him into the heart of the galaxy if necessary. The time for diplomacy was over. The tactical display showed Crethon space and the defensive positions that protected their empire. Intelligence reports indicated heavy fortifications and millions of enemy soldiers. The Crethons expected a long war that would exhaust human resources and force them to accept a negotiated settlement. They were about to learn how wrong they could be. Admiral Morrison activated the fleet-wide communication system. His voice reached every ship in the formation and every human who would fight in the coming war. The message was simple and direct. New Montana was just the beginning. The Krathens had awakened something they did not understand. Earth was going to show the galaxy what happened when humans decided to go to war. The Dreadnought fleet began to move toward the hyperspace jump points that would take them deep into enemy territory. Each ship was a marvel of human engineering and determination. The galaxy had ignored Earth for too long, and now they would learn why humans had survived ice ages and asteroid impacts and countless wars against their own species. The stars themselves seemed to hold their breath as humanity prepared to announce its presence to the galaxy in the only language that warriors understood: fire and steel, and the absolute determination to protect their own no matter what the cost might be.